prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. And with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Oh Lord, you know that we need your presence to inspire us and uphold the foundation of every nation, big and small, young and old.
Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. And with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Oh Lord, I thank you for this life I'm living, all my joys and all my sorrows. For with each day that I am given, my faith in you only grows.
Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. And with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Lord, please guide us and walk beside us to a land of grace and soul. When I get there, please remind us that I've been there all alone.
Oh Lord, prepare
Giving
me
thanks and
to be a
praise,
sanctuary,
that is sanctuary,
pure and holy,
pure and holy. Oh, no, 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 yeah.
I'll be
Na, 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 na.
sanctuary for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
תעשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם. תעשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם.
Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. And with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. It's really wonderful to be in community, such a large, wonderful group. We had no idea, Marji and I, how many we would have tonight in this event. And it's, I feel incredibly blessing to see so many of you and to be part of this amazing community that wants to gather together to share where we are at this moment. We call this evening continuing together, staying connected through the fatigue. And I don't know about you, but I am pretty fatigued. I am pretty tired of this COVID thing. Give me a sign if you are with me on this one, like a thumbs up. Yeah, anybody wants more of this? No, right? And we are all in this. And I, was this morning, I was in a meeting about starting to talk a few ideas, thoughts about high holidays. And I said with other colleagues, and I said that last year before around June, I have written 2 plans for the high holidays, a plan A, plan B. We ended up doing plan B, which was everything virtual, but we had plan A, which assumed that we could be somehow in person. So last June, we thought that by September, there was a possibility that things will be starting to be normal. And now I think about that, and the good news is that I might be able to use the plan A from last year for this year. The work was not in vain. But this realization that we have been in this journey and in this situation in COVID for this long, every time we thought, or at least at the beginning, we thought we were almost there. And then we realized this will be much longer. And here we are now in a moment that feels both exhausting and I can't do this anymore, I'm tired, and also a moment that feels hopeful. I had today 3 meetings in person with people that are fully vaccinated, and it is such a blessing to be able to do that, the difference of where we are now. And holding both this moment of transition, this moment of we're still in it, we are tired, this is too much, I don't know if I can keep going, with we're almost there, can keep going, we will get there. And how we hold all of those. I want to recognize 2 feelings, 2 that are for me very central in this conversation. One is recognizing that exhaustion, that fatigue, how long this journey has been, and how it's been very different for each of us. Those of us who have small children in the house, who work with 2 full-time parents working, and I see several of you in that same boat than me, trying to hold all of that, and doing our best for our children, for our spouses, for our works. When someone asked me, what do I do? I said, I'm a juggler. And recognizing that a few times a week or a few times a day, there are several balls in my juggling that just fall. I'm not feeling guilty about that. And that's where I am. And some of you that live alone. I was talking yesterday with a dear friend of mine, Argentinian dear friend of mine living in San Francisco, and I was complaining about my children, because that's what I do. And she said, Claudia, I have not eaten a meal with anybody in a year and a half. I've been alone. I would take your children right now. And that broke my heart, of course, and realized my pain is one, my fatigue is one, her pain is a different one, her fatigue is another one. And some of you caring for elderly parents or for elderly family. And some of you, each of us are in a different place, and this pandemic has touched us and challenged our lives in different ways. And for some of us, we have been able to have the support we needed. And for some of us, we have not been able to have the support we needed. One thing in common for all of us, this community. Really, this community that has been, I hope, for many of you, for most of you, a source of inspiration, a source of support, a community that has been able to hold us in this time. And then the next thing I want to recognize is the fears and the anxieties of this moment, which are also very different for all of us. Some of us, myself, I'm vaccinated now and I'm feeling safe, and CDC told me this week I can walk around without a mask, and I'm walking around without a mask because CDC told me that. But some of us are not ready for that, and that's okay. And some of us are ready to meet in person and some of us are not. And some of us are ready to come to shul and some of us are not. Each of us are in very different places. And there's no right and wrong in this moment. But I know about myself that I get judgmental to others, and I get judgmental about myself. And how recognizing the fear, the anxieties, the hope, the fatigue, and recognizing that each of us hold this very differently is perhaps the beginning of, of, of this conversation for me. I'm honored to be in this conversation with Marji Sokoll, who is a TVZ member, but she is also the Betty, you know what, I didn't put it out, your title, Marji, your title at JF&CS, but she's an amazing, amazing social worker, facilitator of this kind of conversation. And please, Marji, I'll pass it to you now.
So I am Marji Sokoll, and I'm a member of TBZ, and I'm also the director of the Betty Ann Greenbaum Miller Center for Jewish Healing at JF&CS, along with Barbara Sternfield, who I know is on this call, and Dania Handelsman, who works at JF&CS. And I'm delighted that so many of you showed up because Rav Claudia and I had no idea who would show up, or we just didn't know. And we were just going to be open to what happens, who showed up and how this conversation would unfold. So with that in mind, something I want to lift up that Rav Claudia said, that we all are coming here from different journeys, different perspectives, different experiences, but we're all part of the TBZ community. And that sense of belonging is something that really matters to us as human beings. Because when we have a sense of belonging and connection to a community, to a particular community, that shares some of the same values and cares about similar things, it's a feeling of connecting to something greater than ourselves. It's a feeling of transcendence. And that's a really important thing for us as human beings. And so Maslow, when he had his hierarchy of needs, it was, other than food and all the psychological needs of just sort of feeling safe and okay, belonging was up there. The same with love. Love and belonging was one of his needs. And so that sense of love and interconnectedness in belonging is essential as humans. And that's what TBZ has been trying to create for all of us this past year. So one of the things that Rav Claudia and I were interested in, if we were a smaller group, we would have you unmute. But if you feel comfortable and you'd like to put into the chat what you were hoping for in this hour together, what brought you here in this moment? What was something you were hoping would happen, or something you thought might help you feel better during this time, or not, or just being with others and seeing other humans without masks? So if you feel like you'd like to put something in the chat, I invite you to do that. Again, if we had been a little bit of a smaller group, we would have unmuted. I'm going to give you a moment, and if no one wants to put it in the chat, we can keep going. And also, if you feel moved to put something in the chat in the next hour, that's fine too. But I do want to start with, I may have done this last time when I was with some of you at TBZ, just a way to calm ourselves down in the moment. If we're feeling stressed, whatever's going on in our life, we can do what the Navy SEALs do when they're stressed, and that's breathing, 4-part breathing. And of course, we know that in Jewish tradition, the word for breath and soul is the same root, neshama and nishima. So if you feel comfortable, you can be putting something in the chat, or I invite you to close your eyes. And we're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold. If you don't feel like doing it, that's fine. This time is for you. Do whatever feels comfortable. But if you'd like to join me, I invite you to close your eyes and inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale and hold. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And inhale, hold, exhale, and hold, and begin to breathe at your normal pace. And if you closed your eyes, I invite you to open them. So I just want to name where we are in the pandemic. First of all, we've had a global trauma. We have experienced what's called a global trauma, and that word is being used, that word trauma. We have had a collective global trauma, and also the collective experience of grief. And in the trauma and grief world, that's called the shattering of our assumptive world. And I just want to name that, as we say, you know, the term, if you name it, you can tame it. Because if you can't name something, then you don't know what's going on. But the shattering of assumptive world of what our expectations were before COVID, what we thought the world was like, we couldn't have imagined. Of course, we can imagine a lot of horrible things, but we couldn't imagine what we are going through in our lifetimes. And those who lived 100 years ago in 1918, they went through something similar, along with the World War. They didn't have Zoom. So at least we can have our blessings, have gratitude for Zoom. But still, we have gone through so much trauma and collectively, and we respond to it in different ways. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the second is, when you think about where we are, once COVID came, that was an ending of what life was. One day, you know, Rabbi Claudia, I love if she was talking about her sermons or what she hoped for, because we couldn't even imagine. That was an ending of life as it was. And we are now in what's called a liminal phase. The liminal is an in-between phase, or a transition phase, or a threshold. You go from one status to another when you cross over the threshold, but we're in the threshold. We're in the liminal phase, all of us human beings. And there hasn't been a new beginning yet. So the ending came when COVID hit. We're in the in-between, which is very anxiety provoking because there's so much uncertainty. And once we've moved through this, which we don't know when that will end, there'll be a new beginning. So I also wanted to name sort of where we are globally. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Rob Claudia.
So I will now tell you where we are in the Jewish calendar. Today is a very special day, the day that it's about to start this evening. And again, let me encourage to use the chat for communication. Again, we thought we will have 10, 15 people and we'll have like a lot of conversations, and with 38, which is amazing, we can't do that because it will take the whole time. So please use that chat as a way to comment, like it's a way to like say, I'm reading it, I have it in front of me, and if there is any comments or questions, just to feel your presence, to hear your voice through the chat. But so today is Lag BaOmer. Tonight starts the 33rd day of the Omer, and it's a very auspicious day in the Jewish calendar. Lag BaOmer is it means the 33rd day of the Omer, and as many of you know, we have the counting of the Omer for 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuot, and there's so many meanings to the counting of the Omer. One is this journey from liberation from Egypt to the end, receiving Torah. So that's the first journey that exists. It's not all the way through the land of milk and honey, but it is that first part, is the leaving Egypt, the crossing of the sea, perhaps one of the most traumatic parts of that journey, till we receive Torah. And that moment of receiving Torah 7 weeks after Pesach is a moment of not yet a place of redemption, but at least a place of encountering and recognizing the divine presence and hearing the voice of God. And this is a time that it's usually the counting of the Omer traditionally is a time of mourning, actually. during the counting of the Omer, and different traditions, Ashkenazim and Sfaradim have them a little bit different here. There are a lot of customs of mourning, no weddings, no cutting hair, no a traditional man not shaving, like all kind of practices of mourning, very similar to the practice of Shiva when we're in mourning of someone who has passed away. And the reason is because our tradition teaches that during the counting of the Omer, 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died in a plague. 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died in a plague. And on Lag BaOmer, the plague ended. On Lag BaOmer, the holiday that we celebrate tonight, is like that the end of that morning. Traditionally, actually, today is the day that people go rush to cut their hair if they are practicing that and all other things. Tonight, tomorrow is when the plague ended. And that's there's also Rashbi, and there's the Zohar, Kabbalah. There's a lot of meaning to Lag BaOmer, but I'm going to just focus on this one. On this one that says that this day, the day of Lag BaOmer, is a day that both holds celebration and holds mourning at the same time. Because the fact that the plague ended does not mean that the 24,000 people that died in this plague suddenly were okay. The loss, the grief, the suffering is still there. But Lag BaOmer is the day that something changed and something could start differently. Perhaps it's a moment that we could start to heal, that Rabbi Akiva could start to heal. And in a way, the story in the Gemara talks about the students of Rabbi Akiva that had to start all over again, from the beginning, all over again. So Lag BaOmer is that, it's that liminal, using the word that Marji uses, that liminal moment of holding the looking at what has happened, this terrible plague that took all the students of Rabbi Akiva, and the metaphor of students of Rabbi Akiva, 24,000, it's 2 pairs of 12,000, says the Gemara, right? 20, you have to do your math, 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. What it is saying is that this is the Torah that was put out in the world by Rabbi Akiva, died during the Omer. And that day ends, this ends. It's a moment of still holding the pain, the grief, and it's a moment of saying, whoa, this ended. Now there is opportunity for something new. Now we can't say that this ended yet. We can't. We're not there yet, but we are in that place. I don't think in our COVID life, it's a one day, it's not a Lag BaOmer, it's not a one day where we are announced that everything ended, but it's this liminal moment of where we are still in it, but we also can look at that at the other side of this, and how we hold all what we have lost. All what we have lost, the people we have lost. A couple of you here that lost, Deborah lost her husband to COVID. With you, Deborah, a year ago. Paula Sinclair, I met with her today, lost her father to COVID on Sunday a year ago. People that literally in our community lost family members to COVID. My sister is now reciting the Vidu, the end prayers with her mother-in-law, who's dying of COVID at any moment in Chile. Literally, people, we are grieving for people in our lives that we lost to this plague. And then we're grieving to all the rest we have lost. We're grieving to so much, both physical and emotional loss in our life. And we're in that moment that it's a little bit of a Lag BaOmer moment, a moment that this is about to end. And what does it look like when this is about to end? What can we do? Who are the new ones, the new students of Rabbi Akiva? How does our world look like when we start to think that can be something new? How does that something new holds the grief and the pain, the fatigue, the tiredness, and also the hope, the possibility?
Well, that was beautiful, Rav Claudia. That was absolutely beautiful. Yesterday, I gave a presentation at the Mass Council on Aging, and I was the last speaker of a whole day conference. And my job was to talk about re-entry into senior centers, or as they said, scaling up. So whatever my talk was, and I have never asked this question before, but I asked at the beginning, there were about 70 people on the call, and I said, how many of you have heard the word death or dying all day today? I said, if any of you have heard that word, please raise your hands. No one had heard that word. So I want to acknowledge that we have dealt with death in our community, the death of loved ones in our community. And we don't even know of all the people that are impacted in our TBZ community. And yet often we don't talk about this in our culture. And yet we have had a collective trauma in our country of almost 600,000 people dying. And in our culture, we live in a death-denying culture. And one of the things, my hope for a new beginning, is that we will talk about what does it mean to be mortal? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to deal with illness and all of the things that we've struggled with during the past year? And to acknowledge that, and because that is what we human beings have always done. 100 years ago, the wakes were in people's homes, in the parlor. And in Jewish tradition, a person died and their body was prepared in the home. That's what we did. But I heard a great teacher. Have any of you seen the show, the HBO show 6 Feet Under? Raise your hands if you know that show. Yeah. Well, the consultant to that was named Lynch, and he was from Ireland in his background. And he was a consultant because he's a funeral director. And for many years in his family, he said, we humans, we used to have the wake and the shiva in the home, and the outhouse was outside. And now we've taken death out of the home and we've pushed it away, and we don't want to see it in American culture. And we've taken the outhouse and we've brought it into the home, meaning we've taken our crap into the home and we've pushed death aside. This isn't how human beings have lived and survived all these millennia. And so I thank you, Rav Claudia, for remembering those in our community who are no longer here with us in body, but are certainly here in spirit, because that's a very important part of what we're going through. So I wanted to lift that up. The other kind of loss that we're also going through is what's called ambiguous loss. How many of you have heard of ambiguous loss? All right, a lot of you. Okay, that's good. For those of you who have not heard, obviously ambiguous mean we're not sure, it's unclear, but it's all the living losses that we've gone through in the past year. And if we were to put them in the chat, there would be a list as long as from here to tomorrow. But I do want to read you a quote about what it is for those who don't know, because ambiguous loss is important. It happens when you're grieving a living loss, when something or someone profoundly changes or disappears. Then a person feels torn between the hope that things will return to normal and the looming sense that life as they knew it is fading away like a Polaroid developing in reverse. So it's important to name all the losses that we have experienced in the past year, and there's no hierarchy. I saw in the chat, thank you. Well, Claudia, if you feel like sharing your ambiguous losses in the chat, that would be awesome. I noticed that someone put in the chat the feeling of both and, the feeling that you can feel both different emotions. You can feel joyful and you can feel sad. You can feel scared and you can feel excited, anxiety and excitement. So those kinds of things, and that's also what it is to be human. And ambiguous loss acknowledges that, because it was created by a woman named Pauline Boss, who actually related it to things like, dementia and Alzheimer's and mental illness and addiction. She said it's when a person is physically present, but psychologically absent. So a person is physically present, but if they have advanced Alzheimer's, like my mother, they're psychologically absent. Or if they have a severe addiction, they're physically present, but they're psychologically absent. And the opposite, a person can be physically absent through immigration, missing in action, a million other reasons that a person is physically absent, but they're psychologically present. Maybe even more so than if they were physically here. So many people who are separated in our community by we can't visit, and the immigration status in our community, in our world, physically absent, but so psychologically present. And that is called both and. That's what Pauline said, Boss said. That's we feel both and we can feel I'm both missing this person and I'm afraid to find out what happened to them. So it's a million emotions at once, and it's both and I wanted to acknowledge that many of us, most of us are feeling commonly mixed emotions. And I'll just say, Rav Claudia started at the beginning. There are a lot of days I cannot believe the sadness that comes over me. I'm in the midst of something and just a sad feeling. That's very different than how I was pre-COVID. And I'm accepting it, and I'm in the moment, and I'm saying, I'm just feeling sad now. And we need to accept our emotions, try to accept our emotions and live through the emotions instead of pushing them away, because unfortunately, if we try to do that, they don't exactly disappear. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that when we try to deny our feelings.
Yeah. I want to connect to what you're saying, Marji, to two comments that I saw that, and all the comments. Thank you for sharing. I can hear your voices sharing these comments. Both Judy Shechtman said there have been so much loss and also many COVID blessings. And then Ilana Margalit asked the question just before Judy, I wonder if how we will be able to take all the lessons we have learned about living with uncertainty in our post-COVID lives. And I'm thinking about the teachings in our tradition, in the Mishnah and Brachot. We learn about this idea of, it's the strange Mishnah that says, we bless for the good and for the bad. The idea that there is brachot for good and for bad, that we also make blessings for bad things. And there is the example known to many of us that many of us have said is Baruch Dayan Emet, which is the blessing we say when someone, when we lose someone just before the burial of our loved ones. But this concept of blessing for something bad has always kind of bothered me. What do you mean? Like, blessing is a positive thing. So how can you say something like a blessing for something that it's supposedly bad, that is hurting? And I have come to understand this teaching as a way of recognizing the blessings in a moment that that has been deeply hurting or profoundly, that has been challenging in our lives. Some of you might remember, because I gave a sermon about this my second year at TVZ, but don't worry if you don't remember my sermon from 12 years ago. But it was a big thing that I shared. If you guys remember, I had an ectopic pregnancy, and I spoke about it on Rosh Hashanah. And it was dangerous. If you know about ectopic pregnancies, if you don't find them on time, it can be very dangerous, and you can in third world countries, you lose your life. It's one of the main reasons women die. It's ectopic pregnancies, and I did not know what an ectopic pregnancy was then. I only learned when I was in the hospital trying to figure out what was happening with me. And we terminated the pregnancy and saved my life in that way. And I remember in that moment seeing and experiencing that blessing of the bad. I just remember really recognizing that as a moment of blessing of the bad. My blessing was to feeling grateful to live in Boston and have Beth Israel 5 minutes drive from my house to take care of me in such a, what could have been a dangerous moment, to have the resources, the support, the love, the family to do what I had to do. And the blessing of knowing that this pregnancy needed to end. It needed to go wrong, because if it went right, if I would have carried this pregnancy for a little bit long, my life I would have not lived. And that was a moment of, for me, of profound understanding of blessings of the bad. So I'm translating this, and I wasn't planning to share this. It just came to mind, and I'm translating this to this moment in our existence. There's been a lot of challenge, but as Judy Schechman wrote, there's been a lot of blessings. What is the blessings that are coming up, that we're lifting up from this moment? And that is to Ilana's questions. And how do we take them? How do we take them to what's next, to learn so we can live lives? I think Sue Brand wrote simpler lives, lives that put at the center what is really important, what is really meaningful. Like, how can this teach us what are the real priorities in our lives? So really taking this idea of the blessing of this really, I'm recording, so I won't use the F word. So really really bad year. How we take that blessings from there so something new can grow from there. And in my case, 2 healthy, beautiful children who are watching TV there grew from that.
Beautiful. So I teach this all the time. I'm sure many of you know it. I'm going to do it quickly because I want to go into something. The negativity bias, our brains go to the negative, our brains go to the bad. That's what our brains do. We can't help it. It's a way to keep us safe. Back in the day, to remember where the poisonous berries were and to remember ways to not die and get killed by a saber-toothed tiger. But so it's Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. The good things in our lives don't stick unless we're intentional. We have to be intentional, and we can really change our brains. We have what's called neuroplasticity. And if we practice even something very simple every day for 5 minutes over a month, our brains start changing. And if we do it from up to 4 to 6 months, we have a new habit. So I want to share that. That's really an important thing. We have the capacity during this time of uncertainty. And by the way, we always live with uncertainty. We're just not so aware of it, but we're aware of it now. But we humans, I mean, my favorite story is Abraham and Sarah. They go off. They don't even know where they're going. God says, Lech Lecha or Lechi Lach. Thank you, Debbie Friedman. And they don't know where they're going. Talk about uncertainty. So how do we ground ourselves? So I want to just share a quick, hopefully 4 minutes. But what I want to say first is rituals. This is a quote, rituals ground us. And we have that here in our TBZ community, because when we perform the same actions as we've performed before, and will, God willing, perform again, this helps to connect the past with the future, bringing us into the present, and helps to mitigate uncertainty. So rituals matter, all the kinds of rituals that we do and our personal rituals. So one of the things I'm going to share with you is from Dr. Irit Felsen. This is something that you could bring into your life. And she's a clinical psychologist who specializes in trauma and traumatic loss. And she has a special focus on Holocaust survivors. And she teaches everywhere, not just to survivors or children of survivors. So this is one of her main teachings for all of us. It's called resourcing. So, and this is a way to focus on the good in your life. And this practice will be different for everybody here. I'm going to lead you in it. It's going to take 3 minutes. If you'd like to, close your eyes. If not, leave them open. Just take a moment. And take a breath. We're going to install some kind of a experience in our brain that hopefully we can take as we leave tonight that will help us going forward. So think about something very intently about yourself, a moment in your life or a quality about yourself that you feel is when you were at your best. Think about something that's very strengthening, and it could be about somebody in your life, somebody who's alive, somebody who's not alive. It can be about a place. It can be about a moment in your life. It can be about anything that you want to bring into your brain at this moment. It could be someone who was helpful to you that you'd like to focus on. So now I invite you to think about that situation, the place or the person or the experience that you find very strengthening and very positive for you. It makes you feel the best way about yourself. And when you think about this, think about the features. Imagining this place like, let's say you're thinking about your grandmother, her house, and how you felt when you were there. Or you could be sitting by the beach and watching the waves. Anything that you're imagining and thinking about now, thinking about that a bit stronger. And as you think about it intently, what it looks like, what do you see around you? What are the smells? What are the sounds? The noises? Think about it in great detail and bring in all of your senses. Because the more neural circuits we evoke by thinking about it, through the sights, and the smells, and the sounds, the more powerful this resource becomes in our mind. And you can use this experience in regular life when you don't feel good, when you need to give yourself a boost. You go into that safe place, that good memory. And the more you think about it and the more you practice, the stronger and the better it becomes for you. Okay, I invite you now to open your eyes. That's a very powerful, I do this all the time, and I did it unwittingly. And I'll show you what I think about. My grandmother. This is me when I was 7. And that's my grandmother hugging me. And I imagine myself with her on the farm in Hopkinton. And I also wear a bracelet that she gave me. It's another way to feel the connection when it's with a person. It can also be with an animal, by the way. I love animals, saying that. So any thoughts or comments in the chat about that experience, whether it's something you might find helpful going forward, there's no one right way to feel. Just want to acknowledge that. But I wanted to share that powerful resource. So Rev Claudia, I think it's time for another powerful resource that really works for 96% of the population, music. Apparently only 4% don't like music, but music changes our brains, it changes our moods, it affects how we feel. And the music is what you love. It's not what someone else loves. So music is a very particular experience as well. So Rev Claudia did choose something for us that she wanted to share.
Okay, here I am. Give me 1 second. So I am putting in the chat the text which you might be familiar from the evening prayer. Ashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu, here says shomreinu lechaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, v'taknenu be'etzat tova milfanecha. Grant us, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our garden to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help, shield us and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. This is us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God, are going and coming into life and to peace evermore. And this prayer, which is the part of the evening prayer, everyday evening prayer, we know it from Shabbat. I'm going to put recording. I think this is a tune that many do know. And here, from Craig Taubman. And I just want to invite you to listen to it. You can follow the words and sing. And in a way, invite you to think about what is your Ashkiveinu? What's your prayer that asks for lying down in peace? What is the prayer that, what is the shelter that you are looking? It's connected to Marji's exercise from before. So, let me just
If I can do one more exercise before we hear the music. This is so, there's so many easy things to help us, and I do them all. I practice what I preach. Singing stimulates our vagus nerve, which starts in our brain, and it comes down into our neck, and it comes into our lungs, and into our heart, and into our digestive system. So it's all interconnected. And so singing and humming, even gargling, stimulates the vagus nerve. But when we're muted, we can sing, and it helps to calm down our nervous system. So
let's go. Here it is.
Bring that in.
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim.
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ushmor Zetenu Uvoenu Lechaim Ushalom Me'ata ve'ad
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom,
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu
Eloheinu leshalom,
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu
Adonai Eloheinu leshalom,
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu
I want to say a word about these words. Ashkiveinu Adonai leshalom, ve'avindeinu malkeinu lechaim, avindeinu shomreinu lechaim. God grant a God that we lie down in peace. Ashkivenu, to lie down, lishkav, to go into bed in peace, leshalom, ve'hamidenu, that it's to stand up, to raise us up, lechaim, to life renewed, to be alive. So just inviting you, I get very moved by this prayer in general, no matter what song, what tune we use, and I love Craig Taubman's. What is that? What is the Ashkivenu? What is your Ashkivenu prayer? What is the Ashkivenu? What is for you to lie down in peace? How does that look like? And how can you stand up, la'amod, lechaim? So that's kind of how I put it. So if you feel like putting something in the chat or just writing it to yourself, and this is a prayer of the night. This is a prayer of the night. So if you're looking for more practices in your life, I've been focusing this year to get TVZ and all the Boker Tovniks to do Moda Ani every morning to start the day with gratitude. So now inviting you to a night practice, to a practice of this prayer.
Well, that was beautiful. I have, so feel free to put something in the chat. I have a couple of things I want to share, which I learned this from Rabbi Amy Eilberg, the first female rabbi ordained by the conservative movement in 1985. She was ordained. And I heard this teaching when I was at a conference in New York. And she said, and Rav Claudia just said it, that we have in Judaism death awareness practices about living with uncertainty, because every night when we go to bed, we're not positive we're going to wake up, right? I mean, that's why children are afraid of the dark, at least I was, because we don't know. That's a human experience, and we don't know. We can't take that for granted. So that's why we say the Shema also, along with the Hashkivenu, before we go to sleep at night. And then the first thing we say when we wake up is Moda Ani. And I actually do that prayer. Thank you, God, for giving me back my soul. Because in Judaism, we believe somehow the soul is going off somewhere while we're sleeping. I don't know where it goes. I love that image, though. And then it comes back and it's with us and we wake up. And it's such a prayer of gratitude. So she taught that that's what Judaism, it's a death awareness. We don't know if we'll wake up. We can't take that for granted. And when we do, we say Moda Ani. And if we do that every day and every night before we go to night, as Rav Claudia said, and then that becomes another practice that we have that's a simple one, but helps us to live with uncertainty and helps us to have a sense of gratitude. You know, I work with a lot of older people, and I love when I share and ask about gratitude practices and what they're grateful for. It's really about the simple things of being human. It's about one woman who thought she lost her eyesight in the last couple of days, and every day when she can see a little bit more, she's so grateful that she has her eyesight. Those are the things that we take for granted, and my hope for myself is that I will not take the things for granted that I did before COVID. So the last thing I want to offer is my favorite teaching. You know, I do all these things because they help me. Yeah, that's nice, Deborah. Is from the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who certainly knew adversity. He certainly knew uncertainty, having lived through the Vietnam War in Vietnam and came to America and taught so many of us with his more than 100 books. And so he has Deborah, where's Deborah? Deborah Bitten, you wrote in the chat, I mean, not Deborah, Elizabeth, that the singing made you smile. And so I learned from Thich Nhat Hanh and from actually some of my work at JF&CS that when we smile, even if with people with Parkinson's, even if, which is hard, if we smile, that smiling and the moving of our muscles, even if we don't feel happy, actually changes our nervous system and makes us feel happier. So thank you, Elizabeth, for that. So we practice that with folks that have Parkinson's, smile. But we can do it too. So this is one of my favorite meditations or practices that he does. He says, breathe, and I love it because it's body oriented. And he says, breathing in, I calm my body. And breathing out, I smile. I smile. Dwelling in the present moment is the in-breath, and breathing out, I know this is a wonderful moment. And as he would say, it's a wonderful moment because I know that I'm alive and we're all here together. And as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, to be alive and to know you're alive is the greatest miracle of all. And so this is really a Shehecheyanu moment for all of us. And I thank Dania and the Inclusion Committee who invited Rav Claudia and I to gather together with all of you this evening.
Thank you. Marji, I want to end this by going back to the Modani and the practice as you share it now. Those of you, and I see many of you that come every morning to Boker Tov, we have developed also the practice of the chat being used to say what we are grateful for. And my invitation to the Boker Tovniks has been to really be as concrete as possible. Right? Not just, you know, I am grateful for my family, I'm grateful for being alive. Those are there, but it's concrete. This morning, there were 5 people grateful for their coffee. And right, there were several. There was the coffee, and one had Pete's coffee, the other that caffeinated coffee, the other one had their real decaf coffee. Like everybody was sharing about their coffees. And I love it. I am grateful for my coffee too, I have to say. But I love it because the capacity to be grateful, even for the most simple, also it's about recognizing blessings. For me, these years have been recognized my privileges and taking that as a responsibility in the world. I can complain from here till the end of the days about a lot of things in my life. And I'm so privileged this year. We are healthy. My children go to school in person 4 days a week since September. Me and my spouse have jobs. We have not lost our job. We have not lost our parnasa. We are driving each other crazy. Everybody's driving each other crazy, but we are here. We have food. We have community. We have meaningful jobs. And when I start, we are healthy. We're healthy. And when I start to list the blessings in my life, I also recognize my responsibilities in the world. Because when I have the blessing, I recognize that I can show up in the world for others that don't have those blessings as much as I have. So I want to put that out there. I want to thank Dania and Sue and Misha from the Inclusion Committee for inviting us to do this. All of you for being here, and especially all of you for hanging in with our community. It's like our community is amazing. It's amazing. Like the things that I know what you guys are doing, the things that we are doing for each other are amazing. You know, 2 of you, I won't put you on the spot, made 60 calls on Sunday, 60 phone calls on Sunday. 2 of you here. So 60 people in the community receive phone calls on Sunday by 2 people in this group. People are calling, are shopping, are checking in, are taking care of each other. We are a community that have been really blessed to have each other. We have thrived during this year because we rock. We're amazing. And we're amazing because we are committed to community, because we're committed to each other. We don't want community just to sing a few nice songs. We like singing a few nice songs, and that's great. But we want community because we want something deeper, something meaningful, something real. And I'm just incredibly, incredibly grateful to be with all of you in this community in this really hard journey. But feeling that Lag BaOmer is here, and that means we get to start anew, God willing, really, really soon. And then we will sing in a round, Ashkivenu. Penny, you lead one side, and Kim, you will lead the other group, and we will be all singing together. So Marji, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you all for being here. Feel free to unmute and say bye, Laila Tov, good night, anything you want, so we can hear a little bit of your voices. Unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good, everyone.
Lila Tov.
Laila Tov, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Lila
you.
Tov and hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
That was wonderful. Thank you
That
very
was
much.
Thank you
Thank
from
you.
the heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.